power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes it says nothing at all. Think about the last time someone truly outmaneuvered you, not with volume, not with threats, but with silence, a pause, a withheld opinion, a quiet glance across the room that spoke more than 1,000 words could. This is the battlefield Machiavelli mastered, not of brute force or loud commands, but of psychological terrain, where saying nothing can be the most lethal move in the game. Welcome to Philosophical Pulse, where we explore power, perception, and the human condition through the eyes of history's most strategic minds. Before we dive into this deep and dangerous lesson from Niccolò Machiavelli, hit the subscribe button, tap that bell icon, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Because this is not just a video, it's a mirror into the darker strategies of influence we rarely admit to using. We're going to explore the art of silence, how withholding your words at just the right moment can create fear, command respect, and most importantly, protect your power. Machiavelli didn't just understand when to speak. He knew when silence could win wars. Over the next 20+ minutes, we'll walk through how silence can disarm your rivals, why speaking too soon kills leverage, the psychology behind restraint, and how to use strategic silence in modern relationships, business, and politics without appearing weak. But there's something else, a message at the end of this journey, one that only reveals itself to those who watch until the very last frame. So if you skip ahead, you'll miss it. Stay with me, because once you learn to master this Machiavellian tactic, you'll never see silence the same way again. Let's begin. Part 1. Silence as a weapon. The tactical void. In a world that rewards noise, silence becomes a kind of rebellion. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to react, to correct, defend, respond. But Machiavelli saw what most people miss. The more predictable your voice becomes, the less dangerous you appear. In his letters and in The Prince, Machiavelli didn't praise chatter. He didn't idealize emotional honesty. He respected the void, the space where power waits and listens. He observed that the men who held influence the longest weren't the ones shouting orders, but the ones whose intentions couldn't be read, whose silences made others speak more. And that's the first principle. Silence creates a vacuum, and power rushes in to fill a vacuum. The moment you hold your tongue in a room full of impulsive people, you become the center of gravity. Everyone begins projecting onto you. Is he waiting? Does she disagree? What does that pause mean? They start second-guessing their own position, and in that uncertainty, you gain control. Now pause here. If you're already learning something valuable, take 2 seconds to click that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed to Philosophical Pulse. Your support keeps this space of insight alive. And remember, keep watching, because the lesson at the end, it changes how you'll see every conversation from now on. Machiavelli understood what most leaders don't. The loudest man is often the weakest. A ruler who explains himself too much is a ruler who has already lost respect. Think of it like a game of chess. When you reveal your strategy too early, your opponent stops reacting and starts preparing. But when you say nothing, when you let others talk themselves into corners, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is fear. In Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli describes how leaders in the Roman Republic learned to navigate this balance. They didn't speak until the room had fully revealed itself. They listened, they waited, they used silence not as absence, but as a mirror, forcing others to show their true hands. Because people fill silence with their own fears. And fear, when well managed, becomes loyalty. Let me ask you, have you ever been in a conversation where someone's silence unsettled you? You start talking more, revealing more, trying to fill the gap. That's no accident. It's not social awkwardness. It's strategy. And Machiavelli would argue, it's the best kind. The moment you learn to resist the urge to fill space, you start controlling it. Before we continue, here's a challenge. This week, try saying nothing, not out of passivity, but with purpose. When someone presses you for a reaction, pause. When you're baited into a debate, breathe. When the moment is hot, cool it with your silence. And watch what happens. Coming up next, we'll look at how modern power players, from CEOs to presidents, use silence to control narratives, negotiate outcomes, and dominate rooms without raising their voices. You'll see that Machiavelli's strategy isn't old, it's timeless. So don't go anywhere.
This is just the beginning. And don't forget, there's a message waiting for you at the end. One that ties all these tactics into a single revelation. Miss it, and you miss the meaning behind it all. Part 2. The psychology of restraint. Why not responding is dominance. Power doesn't just come from what you say. It often comes from what you choose not to say. Machiavelli understood that silence is not emptiness. It's precision. It's the art of saying exactly nothing until it's time to strike. In The Prince, he doesn't encourage openness. He encourages calculated silence, restraint as a strategy of control. Because here's the truth. Most people overexpose themselves. They speak before thinking. They justify. They explain. They bleed out their advantage with every word they utter. But not the powerful. Not the truly strategic. Let's pause for a moment. If this is resonating with you, comment below. Have you ever lost power because you spoke too soon? And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Philosophical Pulse, because this channel is built for thinkers like you. And yes, that message we told you about is still coming. And trust me, you'll want to be here for it. Silence in psychology is often mistaken for submission. But in strategy, silence is friction. It makes others uncomfortable. It forces them to fill in the gaps, often revealing more than they should. This is called displacement behavior. When you pause long enough, people project their own anxieties into your silence. They start defending themselves, even when you've said nothing. They start negotiating against themselves, even before you've offered terms. This is how Machiavellian restraint works. You don't reveal your hand. You force them to play theirs. History has seen this tactic used by some of the most dangerous and successful leaders. Napoleon would go minutes in silence during meetings, forcing his generals to nervously over-explain. Steve Jobs was famous for his chilling pauses. He let others unravel in the silence. Barack Obama used well-timed silence to control interviews and debates, waiting just long enough to unsettle his opponents. What do all these leaders have in common? They mastered the pause. They knew that silence, when applied correctly, doesn't weaken your presence. It amplifies it. Let's bring this to the modern world. You're in a negotiation. A client pushes back on your price. Most people rush in, okay, I can lower it, or let me explain why it's fair. But the Machiavellian thinker waits. They say nothing. They let the silence sit like a stone on the table. Because they know, the one who speaks first loses. 10 minutes in. You know what that means. If you've made it this far, you're already different from most viewers. But don't stop now. Drop your thoughts below. Who's the most Machiavellian communicator you know in real life? And remember, subscribe to Philosophical Pulse. Your journey into the psychology of power has only just begun. And that final message, it's coming. And it reframes everything you think you know about how silence protects and exposes power. Part 3, Silence in Betrayal, the weapon that cuts without sound. When betrayal is close, silence becomes a weapon. Machiavelli didn't just study power. He studied its collapse. And what he found was chilling. The most dangerous betrayals were quiet, subtle, silent. No warning, no arguments, no signs, except silence that arrived too late to read. In Discourses on Livy, he wrote of political factions that collapsed, not because of open rebellion, but because leaders ignored silence. Silence after loyalty, silence after trust, silence in place of what once was transparency. He saw that betrayal doesn't scream. It listens. It gathers. It holds back until the blade can be inserted cleanly. Have you ever felt that shift? When someone close goes silent, not out of peace, but out of strategy. That's not detachment. That's positioning. They are realigning, reshaping their future, and you're not in it. Silence isn't always power. Sometimes it's a signal that someone is waiting for the right moment to move. Machiavelli's advice? Disrupt that silence. Force a reaction. Break the quiet before it breaks you. Introduce pressure. Change the terms. Move the chessboard. And watch who flinches. Let's pause. We're almost 10 minutes in. If you're still with us, type silence is power in the comments so I know who made it this far. And again, subscribe to Philosophical Pulse, because this is the kind of content no one is teaching in school. And if you leave now, you'll miss the most important truth Machiavelli ever taught about silence. It's coming. Part 4. The Silent Room, Mastering Group Dynamics Without a Word. Power doesn't always sit at the head of the table. Sometimes it leans back and watches, silent, calculating. Machiavelli understood that in group dynamics, the loudest voice often belongs to the weakest player. The one desperate to be seen, to be heard, to prove something. But the person who says little, who watches the room, who takes in every word, every shift in tone, every change in posture, that's the person in control. There's a concept in political strategy known as the silent center. It's not the speaker. It's not the opposition. It's the one who hasn't yet shown their position. They're the most powerful voice in the room because they haven't spoken yet. Everyone's waiting, guessing, projecting, and the moment you become that person, you control the pace of the room. Machiavelli saw this tactic used in the Florentine courts. Advisors who waited until others fought, and then said just enough to redirect the outcome. They didn't fight. They influenced the fight. That's real power. Control through absence. Let me ask you something. In your meetings, in your family, in your friend group, are you the one always talking? Or are you the one whose silence shifts the energy of the room? Machiavelli would say, if your voice is always present, it becomes noise. But if your silence is rare, it becomes sacred. We've just crossed the 14-minute mark. That means it's time. White heavy check mark, drop a comment below. Silence shapes the room. Brain, tell us, when have you seen silence change the mood, the decision, or the direction of a group? Envelope with arrow, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to Philosophical Pulse now. Because the deeper we go, the more dangerous the lesson becomes. And the final message is worth the wait. Part 5. When to speak, the timing that destroys or builds empires. Silence is powerful, but silence used wrongly is surrender. Machiavelli didn't preach eternal silence. He preached calculated expression. Knowing when to say something is just as powerful as knowing when to say nothing. There are only 3 times Machiavelli believed a ruler should speak. When you control the outcome, when your silence would cost more than your voice, when a lie well-placed protects more than the truth ever could. Let's break it down. 1. Speak when you control the outcome. Don't talk to defend. Talk to conclude.
Part 7. The cost of speaking. How words become currency. Every word you speak is a transaction. You're giving away a piece of your positioning, a glimpse into your mind, a signal of what you want and what you fear. Machiavelli understood this long before modern negotiation theory confirmed it. He believed that words are like currency, and most people spend it too easily. Think of every interaction like a market. The more you talk, the more your value drops. Why? Because what is abundant becomes cheap. But when you speak rarely, deliberately, with restraint, every word becomes expensive. Every idea becomes weighty. Every sentence echoes longer than it's spoken. Let's be clear. Words are not just tools. They are leverage. They can build a movement or betray your next move. They can inspire loyalty or arm your enemies with knowledge. Have you ever had a moment where you wished you had said less? Where the urge to prove something, to be understood, led to a regret you couldn't reverse? That's the real cost of speaking without strategy. You give people ammunition that can be used against you. Machiavelli's advice: make your words expensive, make them rare, make them deliberate. That's how rulers survive. That's how kings outlast coups. That's how you protect your influence. We've now passed the 1 hour 10-minute mark. If you've made it this far, comment. Every word is currency. Share a moment when silence would have saved you. Part 8. The Machiavellian mirror, seeing through the noise. Silence isn't just about what you say. It's about what you learn when others don't know you're watching. Machiavelli believed in using silence as a mirror, not just to control perception, but to observe others. Because here's a truth most people never realize. People reveal more when you say less. The moment you go quiet, others begin to fill the space. They talk, they project, they confess, they slip. And in that space, you see who they really are. Not who they pretend to be. Not who they perform as, but who they default to when they think you're not reacting. In the Florentine courts, silence was used like a spy. Rulers would ask one question, then say nothing more. And what followed? Rambles, reveals, panic. Because silence is not passive, it's psychological pressure, and most people crack. Machiavelli would say, silence is not absence, it's observation. If you want to learn who someone really is, go quiet. Don't interrupt, don't guide, don't push. Just sit, watch, wait. The need to be heard will do the work for you. Now, let me ask you, who have you misjudged because they talked too well? And who have you trusted because you never waited long enough in silence to see what they would do without your attention? That's the final test. Use silence as a mirror, and truth will emerge. We're 80 minutes in. Type below. Silence reveals the truth. Let us know what part of this journey shook you the most. And yes, one final time, subscribe to Philosophical Pulse, because in this final segment, we pull the curtain back, and what's behind it will change how you move through life. The final message: silence is a shield and a sword. Let's return to the beginning. Why does this tactic matter? Why did Machiavelli obsess over the power of silence? Not because he feared conflict, not because he believed in being timid, but because he understood something eternal. You are never safer than when no one knows what you are thinking. In a world obsessed with reaction, the real weapon is restraint. When you learn to say nothing at the right time, you protect your strategy. You disarm manipulation. You become unreadable, untouchable, unstoppable. Machiavelli wasn't asking us to be mute. He was asking us to be dangerously deliberate, to speak when it serves, to be silent when it strengthens, and to always remember, power doesn't come from presence. It comes from control. Here's your final takeaway. In the next 24 hours, you will be given a chance to speak when you shouldn't. You will feel the urge to explain, to argue, to react. Don't. Pause. And in that silence, you'll see exactly who holds the power. If you've made it to the end, you've proven something most never will. That you can sit with discomfort, that you can think deeply, that you can learn to rule yourself before ruling others. And that's what Machiavelli respected most. Not domination of others, but control over one's own instinct. Comment below. I control my silence. Let us know what lesson stayed with you. And if this changed your perspective, share it. Someone in your life needs this message. Subscribe to Philosophical Pulse for more dangerous ideas, more forbidden truths, more strategic insight into power, perception, and psychology. And until next time, let them speak. Let them explain. Let them reveal. You stay silent and stay powerful.